Hello, and welcome to the Craft Brewed Music Podcast, the official podcast of Craft Brewed Music, the music discovery app that streams better music for serious listeners. Here we explore and get to know the creators of that music. I'm Brian Horner, founder and curator of Craft Brewed Music, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Aaron Stamen, a Craft Brewed Music artist. We have bassist, pianist, and multi-instrumentalist Adam Ben Ezra with us on the show this morning. He's been a Craft Brewed Music artist since the beginning, and we had a really fun conversation with him. He is near Tel Aviv, Israel, and so we did the interview at 4 o'clock p.m. his time. I'm on the East Coast. It was 9 a.m., and Aaron is on the West Coast, and it was 6 a.m. And as we've talked about, Aaron and I went to high school together, and although he's improved somewhat, he is historically and notoriously a horrible morning person. He even wrote a whole essay about Morning Man and the dangers of the demonic Morning Man. But you did okay today, Aaron.
Go to hell.
There he is. You're just on your best behavior for the interview. Is that what you're telling me?
Right. It's all over now. That was our first international Craft Brewed Music podcast interview.
I guess that's right.
Yeah, very exciting. Yet another landmark, and it was a great conversation. Really enjoyable to talk to Adam about his relationship with the big bass and his approach to production, doing live recording, doing more traditional track recording, and then his latest album, which is solo piano music. Really a great guest, terrific person to talk to.
And an interesting revelation about the language that he sings in on his albums, which we'll save. We'll let you discover that in the episode.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy this one. This was great.
Yes. No echo. Good level.
Yes, that's great.
The level is good. Yeah, I was having reverb envy for a second.
Yeah. No,
We weren't going to get there.
No. Now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. Adam, my longtime friend and co-host Aaron is on with us.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Adam.
He's also a singer-songwriter and guitarist and a Craft Brewed Music artist.
Very nice to meet you, Adam.
Yeah, pleasure as well.
Are you joining us from Tel Aviv?
Next to Tel Aviv, I'm living in in the countryside, a very small village, like 40 kilometers from Tel Aviv.
Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in Tel Aviv, but as my first boy was born, we changed the direction.
Do you have a studio there?
Yep. I'm speaking from my home studio. Exactly.
That's great. So the move out to the country was not a COVID related move to escape the city.
A few years ago, and actually it was a bless with this COVID because we hardly felt anything here.
Right.
It's so free and nice, and with my child, he didn't go to kindergarten, so we have our garden to play all day there. So it was a bless.
Wow.
That's great. And you got to spend a lot more time at home than usual, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Usually I'm like 40%, 50% of the time abroad on tour. So now I had like a whole year with my family, which was great. It was the longest period of me and my wife together. Um, it was really, really fresh and nice.
Yeah, there were some upsides for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, so we'll jump in here. We're going to start with a little overview. Your debut album, Can't Stop Running, introduced all of the styles that are Adam Ben Ezra with a trio in a more jazz fusion context. Then you shifted gears a bit, recording the live solo concert for the Pin Drop album. And ironically, since you were alone, this album seemed to even more fully express your music. Then last year there was Hide and Seek, a full studio production where you played most of the instruments, followed just recently this year by your solo piano album, Intermission. For someone who's kind of just maybe listening to this and discovering your music for the first time or discovering your music on our app for the first time, how would you introduce or describe yourself and talk about, the journey through all of that, how you've become what you are musically?
It's definitely a long journey. I've been playing music for 30 years right now, or even more. Um, and I started with all kinds of instruments until I reached to the double bass. Uh, um, and that's why maybe I try to push the limit of the instrument and to implement all kinds of other techniques from other instruments that I play into this one. And also I like to blend lots of different genres in my music, so it keeps evolving, um, and always try to find a new sound.
Do you identify first and foremost as a bass player?
Yeah, my main instrument is the bass, is the double bass. I was a bass player in all kinds of groups and bands for many years. I love this part of mine of being a supporter, and that's a very major part of me. I'm not using this part in the last few years as a solo artist. Um, but definitely the bass is like the first love. Uh, but as I said, I've been playing the piano since I was 7, and guitar and other instruments came along the way. And I think one of the reason was that I wanted my solo show to be more varied and interesting, with lots of other flavors. Also, my videos and my albums, of course.
So earlier in your bass playing career, were you playing in more traditional jazz ensembles, jazz combos?
Exactly. The reason I'm switched from electric bass to double bass was because I started to listen to jazz, and I wanted to have the real sound of jazz. So I played in lots kinds of quartets and trios, and some even few big bands in Israel. I had a great time playing this style jazz. I played in lots of weddings and stuff and events like that, and
Mm-hmm.
and they never wanted us to play with the drummer because it was too loud. So that's
Hmm.
how I could practice my percussion technique
Hmm.
a lot through working with the band, which is a
Oh,
was a
so that was born out of necessity, or born out of
no, I
um,
like to do it.
that.
I was playing with this percussing sound before, and that was a way to practice it on real time, and it was a great opportunity.
those who are familiar with your music or your YouTube presence know that you have this very special relationship with the bass and are able to extract uh, a multitude of very unique voices from it. It's interesting that all these other instruments, you know, uh, kind of came before it. Your experience with the guitar and the piano, the clarinet, the oud, and although you have a proficiency on these instruments such that you can add them all into your studio albums and even add them in live. But one of the things I love about your bass playing is that you borrow elements of all these instruments and kind of infuse them into the double bass. One of my favorite devices you use on the bass is where you create that oud melodic sensibility and the tremolo picking on the upright bass.
Yeah, I love Middle Eastern music and Arabic music, and when I got my first oud, it was a love in first sight. Um, and actually playing on the oud, the Arabic music, when I transformed it to the bass, I learned a lot about articulations and how to make melodies in different ways, in all kind, and adding all kinds of ornaments. That's what you do a lot in Middle Eastern music. So really playing the oud really benefits my double bass playing. Not even when I try to imitate the oud, but in general, really benefit my melodic kind of playing.
Yeah, it is a very unique voice in music, and for those listeners who don't know, the oud is a 11 course fretless lute that's used in Middle Eastern music. Brian and I had the great pleasure to play with master oudist John Babarian,
Okay.
who lives in the Boston area in an Armenian rock show, and it is such a great voice in music, and it's really cool that you took this very unmistakable idiomatic melodic sensibility and were able to translate that into such a um, onto the bass and have it be such an effective voice in your music, particularly on the missing piece
Right.
on the hide and seek version of that one. There's a little oud on bass interlude there that I think is fantastic.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it gives another angle to this piece, because this is not a Middle Eastern kind of piece. It's a ballad, dark ballad, based on piano playing, and the thing that I like to bring in my music is all kinds of contracts. So adding this Middle Eastern flavor solo in the middle, I really like this idea.
I think of production as taking the vision for a piece of music and figuring out how to realize that vision in the studio. With all of the elements that go into your studio albums, obviously that's an important role in your music. But when you listen to Pin Drop, where you're playing live and alone
Yeah.
for a studio audience, or watching your performances on YouTube, there's a lot that goes into producing those situations as well. Do you think of it that way in terms of producing, what you do solo?
Um, that's a way to look at it. Yes, I mean when I when I perform a piece, because I'm using all kinds of looping and there's an arrangement, and then you go into the production. I mean, point of view of bringing up things. Um, so yes, I guess when I do all of my YouTube performances, there's a production uh, uh, process through it. So yes, I guess.
Was
Yeah.
was hide and seek a kind of a deliberate shift after work? Because pin drop, it's this you're getting the essence of the Adam Ben Ezra live experience, where you have virtuosity on the bass, you have looping, you have percussive elements on the bass, you have beatboxing, vocals, clarinet, all these things you add in, but it's all one solo artist creating a singular musical experience. And then you switch over to hide and seek, and you're having a more traditional tracking out different parts kind of production. And was that a deliberate shift for you in one project to another?
I mean, every album in every album I want to search for something different. Can't Stop Running was a live trio album, um, and Pin Drop was a live performance. So in that point, I really wanted to have a, a, a tight production studio album, and that's why I also took an external producer, Isaac the Bomb.
Hmm.
He's coming from hip hop and R&B areas, and he plays all the drumming and percussion in the album. So we really completed each other. Um, and it was a great process to suddenly you have the freedom to arrange your music as you want, because when I play when it's a live trio or a live performance, you are limited to what your looper can do and on what your hands can do. And now I wanted to have a free access to all of my desires, and
You didn't seem like you were that limited when you had when you had those restrictions. I think you
don't
still did
know what
okay.
I have in my mind.
So for hide and seek, this came out last year. So I presume you have not had the opportunity to tour
No, not yeah.
with that
It was
music
released
yet.
just before the COVID 19. started.
So, had your plan been to develop an ensemble to play the music as it's conceived in the record, or were you planning more to do solo versions of those tunes?
Right now, I'm doing solo versions. Even before the this album was released, I played some of the tunes in my shows, in my solo
Hmm.
shows. So that's how I'm going to do it when I start touring again. Actually, in a few days, I'm performing here in Israel in the jazz festival. So it's very, very exciting. Uh,
Wow, that's great.
yeah, amazing, amazing.
So I mean, Israel has done a remarkably good job with their vaccination program, and they have some kind of vaccine green card or some kind of pass, I believe.
Yeah.
So does that mean that things like jazz festivals are now a feature a feature that you can expect more of, at least in your country?
Uh,
Is that right?
exactly, exactly. You have now live performances all over in every genres. I'm not sure the very big audience and the very big shows are still on, but clubs of up to 500 people, I think, are working every day now, which is great.
We're going to take a quick intermission for a word from our sponsor, which is us. Craft Brewed Music is a curated streaming service that streams better music for serious listeners. Sometimes we hear that people want to hear more of the songs we play on the podcast. There are a couple of ways to hear more Craft Brewed Music. You can download the app from the App Store or Google Play and get a free trial. Or you can become a patron of the podcast on Patreon, linked in the description of each episode, and get exclusive bonus episodes containing extra music and a sampling of our other artists. We'll help you discover music off the beaten path so that you become the person your friends turn to for recommendations, and we split our income with the artists. Craft Brewed Music, better music for serious listeners. To hear samples and find out more about us, visit craftbrewedmusic.com. So, Adam, you mentioned genre earlier and liking to involve a lot of genres in your music. The Craft Brewed Music streaming service is curated and designed to help people discover music and artists that uh, blur genre boundaries to varying extents. Your music completely obliterates genre boundaries and is totally, craft in my mind fits our exactly what is our aesthetic for craft brewed music. How do you think about genre, and is it something you're conscious of as you create, or is it something that you completely ignore?
I don't want to be limited to a genre. That's for sure. I'm not even if I started to play to compose in one genre. I'm free to move to another genre if it requires. I'm not going to force it just to make it more varied.
Hmm.
Um, I played lots of genres as a bass player. When you are a session player and you just play whatever you get.
Right.
That's what I had the opportunity to really play. I think other than hard metal, I played everything. So
That's the next album.
yeah, exactly. Growling. I'm working on my growling now.
And
Um,
so, as a player, you were formed by all those experiences. Were there earlier listening experiences, the music that you heard in your house growing up, or what made that all kind of part of your musical DNA?
Curiosity, yes. When I was younger, I listened to a lot of genres of music, and I was curious to play it. And every opportunity that got into my way to play a different genre that I used to play, I jumped on it. And now I feel that I have such a wide vocabulary of sounds and genres, and it really benefits my composing process. I'm yeah, I have more vocabulary to express myself and to mix. between genres to make a new sound. And I think that what music is going that's what the modern music now is going to. Everybody's mixing lots of different genres, and try not to stay so traditional, I guess.
And this is great for musical creativity. This is great for composition. This is great for the modern composer. One of the challenges, I think, for both the composer and the listener alike, is that the way that people discover music, which is something Brian and I think about a lot, um, uh, relies on picking a lane, picking a genre for your music when it goes on, Spotify, or it's on Pandora, and then you're trying to figure out how, or their algorithms trying to figure out how to shove you into a list of things on a shuffle, and it's not um, it's not of benefit to label your music as jazz or alternative or dance music, or any one of these elements that comes into your music, or God forbid, world music, because for an American sensibility, anything that is has like a Middle Eastern melodic flavor to it, and God forbid is sung in another language, like, oh, that's like ethnic music.
Right.
And these labels, unfortunately, kind of stick your incredibly diverse and broad creation into one lane, and that unfortunately might be harder to discover as a result. Do you have a strategy for trying to overcome that kind of genre lane that the industry forces?
That's a very, very good question. I'm having difficulties to even to define my own genre. So it's a hard one. Um, yes, I'm touching with the I mean, I'm with the world music. I'm using a lot of the ethnic sound because that's where I'm coming from, and I'm very proud of it, and I love this sound. Um, I think that in my you can hear it a lot in hide and seek, that the general sound of things is I'm trying to make it up to date, with an electronic aspect. So even there's a Middle Eastern melody, or the weird language that I'm using when I'm singing, it comes with a very poppy beat, and electronic sounds. uh, so I think I'm trying to make it more accessible for people that are not aware or listening to this kind of music in general.
Well, and that's exactly what I heard in it, when I approached your manager Guy about signing your music for Craft Brewed Music, is it's complex and it's substantial, and it uh, brings in all of these things, but in an accessible package that I believe anybody could enjoy. So, that's kind of what we're all about in trying to almost, in essence, create a genre, craft brewed music, give a name to these things that defy all of the established names, and hopefully can put them in front of people who are open to discovering those things. So that speaks to your success in accomplishing that. You know, Certainly it's exactly what jumped out at us.
It's great to hear that.
Brian and I were kind of laughing about the the Western concept of world music, which to listen to Mama Ja or Tumbada from the Hide and Seek album. I'm sure if you're in Tel Aviv and you hear that on the radio, you'd think of it as music. You wouldn't you wouldn't
Yeah,
think of it as
that,
world music,
that's pop in Israel, actually. That,
right?
that's how pop sounds like
Does it have access to those mainstream channels then
in
in
Israel.
Israel?
No, I'm not. First of all, I'm not singing in Hebrew, so
Okay.
that's a difficult.
You had us fooled.
Ah, you thought it's a Hebrew.
My Hebrew is not good enough to discern.
Exactly. No, actually, it's a language. It's the language of music. If you know about Svara, the Indian kind of singing, where they play,
Hmm.
where they have their scales instead of do re mi fa sol la si do, they have sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa. And the way they sing, they just sing the name of the note there in the melody. So
Okay.
so that's what I do. I took this system of naming the notes of the melody. I added the Middle Eastern Arabic sound. So it's not. It doesn't sound like an Indian music. It sounds like a Middle Eastern language, and that's how I sing. I just sing the notes of the music, and it sounds like a language. And the way that I mean, you thought it's Hebrew, so it's a great thing for me, because you really thought it's a language with meaning, but it's not.
Right.
Thank you for giving us credit for our ignorance.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had asked Guy for translations, and I didn't notice. He sent me a bunch of information that I'd asked for, and I just realized just now as you were talking that there were no translations, and that's probably that's probably why.
The translation is
Had, w-
of Mama Ja is Fafa Mi or FFE.
رجعهم يوم جاني ولك دوني ما جا مع يوم جاني زني رخشاني دوني زني ما جا مع يوداني ريشا وني رمشي وجاني حساني يا زاني أنا ما جا جاهم يوم جاني أنا ما جا مع يوم جاني زني رخشاني دوني زني ما جا مع يوداني ريشا وني رمشي وجاني خساني يا زاني أنا ما جا داوية ما جاري ما جا
I had a question. You've played so many different instruments and gained such an expertise that you're able to use most of them on your recordings. Was voice and singing always a part of your musical expression, or is that something that came later after being an instrumentalist?
Actually, I was in my mind. I was a singer before I was a bass player. When I was, I mean, from the age of 12, I think, until the age of 20, I was to write songs in Hebrew. One of them I even edit in is featured in Can Sopraning. It's called Elohima, and this is Hebrew.
Hmm.
Um, but until then, I thought I'm going to be a singer songwriter, and then I started to play more and felt in love with instrumental music. So so and later on I got back. I mean this voice vocal yeah, it returned to my path.
Okay, so it was kind of like the completing of a loop, and not a new discovery
Right,
for
right.
yeah.
And so your new album, Intermission, solo piano music that's very peaceful and searching and contemplative, um, includes a few songs that have appeared on previous albums, and then
Right.
some new works, I assume. What was the tell us a bit about the inspiration for that album, and what it meant for you to have that, to make that and have it come out during this year that we've all been through.
So it was an idea of mine that I had for many years. Some of the pieces that are featured in this album are pieces that I composed before, um, and they weren't included even in my previous albums. So it was like a vision of mine that I thought maybe when I have time, I'm going to dig in into my piano and release them. And now with this Corona year, that was the perfect opportunity for me to do it, because I just finished a complete studio project of bass, and
Right.
try to take out of it whatever I can, and I couldn't have another project like that. Um, so in the first half a year of the 2020, basically all I did is to play the piano, and it was a great journey for me, and composing and practicing, and it was a great experience, and I'm very very proud of the outcome. Uh, so this the intermission project is available everywhere, and also I released the piano book, that the full transcription of this album. So it's something that can be played by.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yes.
Were many of these tunes composed on the piano, or are they largely reimaginings of?
No, they were composed, yeah, for the piano. Yeah, exactly, just for the piano. Usually, yeah, I mean, some of my music in general, I composed on piano, and they can be transformed to other instrument. Sometimes I've even composed on guitar, and then I switch it to the bass. But this project was started and ended as a piano project.
One of my favorites off the Intermission album is the version of "Mad About the Girl," which originally appeared on "Can't Stop Running" with the trio. And when it's played as a piano solo, I can't help but think Bill Evans with some of those piano voicings. Was he an influence of yours?
Yeah, I listened to him a lot. I love the Voice for Debbie, and all kinds of. I love his. There's a one album, I think Jazz in Live in Montreal, that he played with Eddie Gomez, that I listened to it a lot. And yeah, he's one of the best pianists ever. And yeah,
Yes. And when I listen to your music, I also think about Eddie Gomez as somebody who was doing things with the upright bass that nobody was quite pulling off before that.
yeah, he's a great influence, Eddie Gomez. I really dig his sound and bass playing and solos, and really, really amazing.
As far as you know, has anyone else applied the some of these, well, I'm going to call them borrowed techniques. Like I mentioned the oud already, and you kind of have that tremolo picking that you do on a single string. But there's at times you also emulate the flamenco guitar with these rascallados
Yeah.
on the bass. I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone try that before. But did you have any source material on your instrument for doing that?
Um, I mean, I think Stanley Clark sometimes is doing something that is similar to that. Um, and in general, I looked for all kinds of inspiration on YouTube to check what other bass players are doing, especially when I was working on my percussive technique.
Hmm.
So I all I found on YouTube was the rockabilly slap style.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
Right.
yeah, so
Right.
so I didn't like the sound because it was too metal for me and too harsh.
And
Uh,
Yeah.
that's where the bass player is hitting the string to get a note, as well as the percussive sound of the metal string hitting the
right.
fingerboard, right?
Yeah, they pinch in the the string, so it hit the fingerboard, and then you get this hit sound. But it was
Yeah.
too metal for me. So, I learned a lot from their technique, and I just needed to transform it from the fingerboard to the bass body. But it's the same
Yeah.
technique, the same point of view, let's say.
Hmm.
So that was a good
Interesting.
Yeah.
influence.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, truly. It's
And
been a pleasure to talk to you, and listening to your music has been an absolute joy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
thank you for listening. Craft Brewed Music, both the podcast and the streaming service, has the mission of promoting this music and these artists. We can't do that without ears on the music. So if you like what you've heard here, we're going to ask 2 small favors. First, tell someone about the podcast. Secondly, go to the App Store or Google Play, download the Craft Brewed Music app, and try a free 2-week trial of the streaming service. For more information, visit us at craftbrewedmusic.com. Thanks again, and see you next time.